Welcome to another episode of Heroic Hotline. I am so blessed to be joined by my good buddy Jeff Joaquin, who I get to spend the weekend with.
Yeah, up in cold Canada, Sean. You're pulling me from Tampa, Florida, to be up there in the freezing white north. So I'm looking forward to it, though. I like cold weather. It's a nice change.
And then I've got a toque for you here. You guys might call them beanies down south. I just don't understand that. They're
Yeah,
toques, and so to keep you warm, and I might have something else for you to help
yeah.
keep you warm there.
Spirits, right?
Well, jackets, spirits, yeah, we'll see what works. We'll do some testing because I know your sensitive Florida body might be reacting. And sure enough, it's the temperature's going down starting tomorrow for a couple days.
And what is it going down from, Sean?
I think well, we're right for yours, we're right around 32. We were up in the mid 40s earlier in the week, but I think you're going to be somewhere in the 20s, maybe teens for you guys. So,
Oh, the mid-40s. You guys were outside in tank tops, weren't you?
I might resemble that remark. So, yeah, it
That's
gets
winter coat weather in Florida, I'll tell you.
whereas yeah, like going down there we'd melt. My oldest son went to University of Ave Maria there, and for him he joined the soccer team, and doing the 5 mile, 7 mile runs in 100 Fahrenheit was deadly to him.
Yeah, that he definitely didn't get much of that up in Alberta, did he?
No, no, BC, the province over, like during the summer, it can get up there. It can get even as high as 110. I'll have to do some calculations, but they broke some records a couple years back where they got up into like the 45 Celsius, which is like 120, I think. So,
Wow. Wow.
yeah, it we have our seasons up here. So the Heroic Hotline, we're relaunching it. We're looking at making it a weekly event where hopefully we'll get some live audience participation, asking questions. You being a board member of the Catholic Men's Leadership Alliance, which powers heroic men, we thought, and you seem to be doing a lot of speaking right now, including in Calgary at the 28th annual God Squad Men's Conference. We're Pilgrims of Hope this year. So what's drawn you to take these steps to put yourself out there as a speaker, as a board member?
Sean, a great question. I've been blessed to. We just had our 15th men's conference in Tampa here on March 1st, a couple weeks ago, and we've had all the great speakers come in. Father Larry Richards, Deacon Harold Burke-Sievers, Jeff Cavins, a lot of great inspirational people. But about 4 years ago, I think it was, Sean, we decided to add what we call the witness talk. Just an average guy from the pew telling his story, and a lot of times that story is not very pretty, but so we started that about 4 years ago. And Sean, I was blessed, nominated by my fellow board members that run the conference to do the first one. And we were shocked at the response. You know what I mean? I didn't get up there and talk about, my, being a two-time preseason All-American. I didn't talk about my business success in my 30s and then launching my own company in my 40s and 50s. I just talked about all the struggles that I had in life, alcoholism and drug abuse and an abortion I had when I was 17 and workaholism, a bunch of stuff. And it really shocked, Sean, quite frankly, the audience. They were taken back by the vulnerability, taken back by the honesty. And, now it's just taken on legs, Sean. You know what I mean? It's not, and it's nothing against any of the other speakers I mentioned or any of the people that we've had over the years, but people now, Sean, dare I say, are so broken they need a permission slip to come out of the darkness of their sin Pornography is another thing I talk about in almost every one of my talks. And I don't like talking about these things, Sean. I spent the better part of 50 years protecting my reputation, right? I had to, as a business owner, as a community leader, as a leader in ministry, I had to protect my reputation. But it wasn't until I figured out that God really needed me. Like I think it's St. Paul in his second letter to the Corinthians talks about boasting of his weaknesses. Once I started boasting of my weaknesses, Sean, I mean, now I'm going to have traveled all over North America the last 5 years now that you invited me to the Great White North. So people are receiving it very well, Sean, because it's different. It's different. People aren't going to the conference to be tickled mentally or have their heart warmed. They're going there because they're struggling, and they're going there because they can connect with somebody else who is struggling, and it helps them come out of their captivities. It's been a great blessing for me. I 4 years ago, I did that first event, and now I do 12, 13, 14 events a year now, and it's really catching on. People see the value behind. Father Larry invited me to his conference last weekend, so it's been a real blessing for me, Sean.
It's funny how the circle of life, almost, where you had Father Larry there as the big keynote, and now he's having you at his, and it's amazing.
Sean, I said this to my wife a couple weeks ago because she remembers this. Rewind about 15 years ago, I remember having all of Father Larry's CDs, Confession and the Mass Explained. I would listen to those when I was working out in our gym and at the house. And here we are 15 years later, and that man that provided so much inspiration for me in my faith journey is inviting me to speak at his men's conference. And just such an honor. It's a privilege. It's a blessing to be able to share, for
Well,
sure.
and that's where he's still providing that blessing to many other, he's part of the board for the CMLA, Catholic Men's Leadership Alliance, and he's always as real in person as he is when he's up on the stage speaking, and he
That,
loves giving you a hard time.
when we went to Waco, Sean, 2 years ago, right, in January, well, last year in January. And that was what was surprising to me, because you never know. Sometimes people, when they're engaging speakers and you meet them in person, they're, a cool, calm, and collected individual. But no, Father Larry is the real deal. Whether you meet him in person or you listen to him on a tape, or you're at a Lenten retreat, he's the same person, one way or the other,
I'm
and a
just
great inspiration for so many, to say the least.
I'm just using my phone because this is a live thing, and Peter is our producer, and I'm gonna see if he can pull up the trailer, because one of the things that Heroic Men, Peter, if you're listening, it's on the YouTube link there that I just sent you. Father Larry has done a series for Heroic Men on his Be a Man book, and we just got the trailer the other day, and it looks incredible. I'm gonna see, because we're experimenting. That's what the whole Heroic Hotline is, and much to you sharing your story, that's what we're hoping to do, is get a bunch of guys just talking about different subjects, and getting some of the guys down in the trenches that are doing the work, and bring them on, and get them to share their what's happening with them. And eventually we're hoping to build an audience where we can have questions posed to us to try and answer for these people. And what I always did, whether it was Bible studies or anything, I said, I've got a great Rolodex of phone a friend. So if I can't answer it here, we'll try and get you an answer by the next show
Sure,
from
sure.
somebody that knows. So Peter, do we have anybody watching? Okay. Because we just put it out on the Brotherhood right now, so we're not live on our social media, and we had one gentleman register, but he's in Hawaii, so he's probably still finishing up breakfast.
Yeah.
And so, and we're going to continue to grow this. Peter, are you able to pull up that video? Okay. He said he can't do that for us. So the people, Jeff can hear him, I can hear him, but the people on screen and in this video will not hear our producer, which is, he's going to put it in the chat for those that are interested. But it's really exciting, and when we produce this video, we'll make sure we attach Father Larry's trailer to the end of this episode. So what else? Like, you're a businessman. How hard is it to live out your vocation as a solid Catholic man in business?
Yeah, Sean, that's a great question. You know, I would say about 15 years ago, Sean, when I started JMJ Site Development, I was a pretty good Catholic Christian on Sunday, right? But Monday through Saturday, I knew there was room for improvement. You know what I mean? We kind of lead dual lives, if you will, Catholic Christians. We are a Christian on Sunday, and then Monday through Saturday, we're back out into the real world with the rest of the pagans. And sometimes, just like swimming in seawater, right? When you swim in the ocean, you come back out, you got to rinse off because the salt stays on you. So it took me, Sean, a number of years to really integrate into my business life how I operated on Sunday. So I finally said to myself, I said, listen, I'm not going to be a dual Christian, right? I'm going to try to be the best Christian I can be on Sunday, but I'm also going to bring that into my workplace Monday through Saturday. And it was a process, and I'm still growing in that regard, but it's amazing. I always say to people, Sean, that my business is my ministry, and my ministry is my business. You know, we every proposal that we sent out has our mission statement on it, Matthew 16:26. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world yet forfeit his soul? Every time we go to, well, I never go to business lunches with people, okay, because I go to 12:10 mass every day and have for 17 years. So that was an interesting change in my business dynamics as well, because everyone would say, hey, let's go to lunch, let's go to lunch, let's go to lunch. And I'd say, yeah, we can go to lunch, but it's going to be at 1:00 because I got an appointment with God first, and then I can meet with you second. So, but I'll tell you, Sean,
How has that resonated with the people that you work with or your business associates? Or, like, I'm sure you've got suppliers and everything that want to meet with you.
Sure. I could tell you, Sean, I could tell you 100 different stories about me learning to be a Christian on Monday to Saturday and how that's impacted other people. I'll give you one example, okay? In the construction industry, there's something that's called lien releases, okay? When I'm working for an owner, before they pay me, I have to give them, Sean, a lien release, which is, it basically says to the owner that I've paid everybody beneath me, okay? And at the end of the project, Sean, all of the people beneath me have to give final lien releases before the owner will pay me the final amount for the project. So on this particular project, Sean, it wasn't a big job. It was a $500,000 job, and it had a lot of paving on it. And we used this particular paving company to do the work on the job. And they gave me a final lien release for the project. I gave it to the owner. The owner paid us 100%. And we thought the project was done. Well, I got a call from an administrative assistant for this paving company about a month later. And the lady said to me, she said, hey, listen, you still owe us $17,000. And I said, okay. I said, let me let our, they had already given us the final lien release, but now I guess they had missed the billing as part of that. So I said to the woman, I said, hey, listen, let me let our accountant check out the books. And if we owe you the money, we're going to pay you. And then there was a long pause. And then I said, hello? And she said, yeah. She said, I'm just taken back by the fact that you would pay me even after we have given you the final lien release. Nobody would do that. And I remember saying to the woman, I said, listen, if we owe you the money, we owe you the money. Just because you made a mistake in your accounting doesn't mean that, as a Christian business owner, I have to treat everyone with dignity and respect. And so if I owe you the money, I owe you the money. So long story short, accountant checked it out. We did owe the money. I called the lady back and I said, have Mike, who is the president of the company, meet me at a certain, we actually met at an equipment dealer parking lot, and I gave him that $17,000. That woman called me back a day later and she was in tears, Sean, and she said, I would have probably gotten fired if you didn't pay that money. And, Sean, as Catholic Christian business owners, we can send a strong message to people about what it means to be Christian in the workplace. And again, it's easy to be a Christian when you're sitting in the pews on Sunday. It's a lot harder on Monday when you got to write a $17,000 check that you didn't think you owed anybody. That's just one minor example. I mean, we've been blessed over the last 15 years we have ministries on 4 different continents. Usually it's schools, grade schools or middle schools all over the world that we've either started building, put additions on. One school in the Philippines got wiped out by a typhoon and we rebuilt that school. So we take very seriously the words of Matthew 25:40, which is what you do for the least of my brethren, you do for me. And it's amazing, Sean, what God has blessed us to do over the years, So not only is it just being a Christian example in a pagan world, but then it's acting on, the charitable nature of every Christian. And it's a blessing for us. I don't say that so that I can be lifted up on a pedestal. I say that because it's an honor for me to see the kids in India, that walk 3 miles barefoot back and from their place of home to go to a school that we built or modified, because it's the only hot meal that they'll get during the day, Sean. You know what I mean? And that's, you're talking about thousands of kids now that are being impacted by God's blessing and halfway around the world in a place that I'll never go to and never care to go to. So my business is my ministry and my ministry is my business. I don't separate who I am on Sunday from who I am on Friday afternoon. It's the same person, unworthy person that I am, but I don't separate myself in the way that I did in the previous 10 or 15 years in business.
Because you're speaking into an industry that has a reputation for being extremely ruthless and underhanded, and like you say, I know my son was helping. He was doing cabinets and a small company, and they were doing a school and they put it all in, and then the general contractor says, yeah, I think we'll pay you 50 cents on the dollar, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
just and the ruthlessness within that, and you coming in as a light of what honor and looks like, because we need to be men of our word, men of honor and example, because that's going to rub off. People are like, I remember our old police chief, we got these really nice belt buckles after you did 25 years or before it was when you retired, and he said it harkened back to the time where a man's word was his bond, and a handshake meant that it was like we didn't need 5 lawyers to review. If I said something, I would honor it.
Yeah, the handshake deal, Sean. My business, I can tell you this, Sean, prior to me starting J&J Site Development, I ran one of the biggest construction companies in Central Florida. And, that's a story in and of itself, me leaving there. But long story short, that company was going chapter 11. And, I didn't know what chapter 11 meant at that time in my life, but basically what it meant is that you had people continue to work for you and you continued to work for your client, and then you build your client, and then when it came time to pay the people that work for you, you didn't pay them. And it was, it's like legal extortion, in my opinion. And that's why I left that company. And, because, Sean, at the end of the day, to be a Christian means we're a follower of Christ. And we have to conduct ourselves that way, Sean, in the boardroom, and in the bedroom, and everywhere in between. I mean, and a lot of men don't want to hear that, and they run for cover when you say that. But hey, he's either Lord of all of your life or none of your life, brother. There don't, his words, right? I would rather have you be steaming hot or cold as ice. He doesn't, the lukewarm, he vomits those people out of his mouth. And, Sean, I say this because I do a lot of pro-life talks, right? And I can tell you miracle stories from those talks. But I always say to young men when I'm speaking at high schools or colleges, I say to them, if you're old enough to have premarital sex, if you're going to test drive every car in the vehicle before you buy one, when you get that phone call from your girlfriend or your wife in certain instances, be a man, and use that backbone that you were born with and not the wishbone that you're currently walking around with, and stand up for your girlfriend, stand up for your wife, stand up for righteousness, man. We need more men that are willing to step out of the darkness of their sin and into the light of being a Christian, in every walk of life. I get a kick out of these athletes that that kneel for the national anthem. I mean, we have free choice in this world, Sean, right?
Yep.
And the good Lord gives us the opportunity to make decisions that benefit ourselves. Okay. And I did that for 40 years, Sean. Maybe not 40, call it 30 years. The vast majority of the decisions that I made were to benefit me, right? The Holy Trinity, me, myself, and I. But the last 25 years, brother, I try to make as many decisions as possible for the benefit of others. And that doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean I don't fall short, but I at least try to live out what it is to be a Christian. And that's tough, man. That's tough in business. That's tough in ministry, as you know. It's tough everywhere because, what did the good Lord say? You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. John 8:32. I think, Sean, the reason why so many opportunities have presented themselves from a speaking perspective for me is because that's what I do. I go in and tell the truth to men, not in the hopes that they'll lift me up for it, but in the hopes that they'll go to confession and they'll change their life because of that which is separating them from God.
Yeah, you're trying to create that contagion, and that's what we're heroic men is trying to do. It's not about you, it's about all of us working together, and that pro-life message is the whole reason we're here, because there's so many young men that do not have that strong fatherly figure to give them advice, to guide them, to be that rock for them. And so bringing other men alongside, and in that vein, like, because quite often Catholics, we get caught in being very serious all the time, right? And but how bring joy to others around you? Like, what brings you joy to give joy, kind of thing?
Sean, that's a great question because hit rewind 30 something years ago. My nickname in college was Joker. like the playing card Joker. And I found that especially when it's the smaller groups, 100 men or less, sometimes co-ed talks that I give, I try to interject humor because I think, Sean, you know, we take ourselves too seriously, most of us. And I think humor is a great way to bring levity into a situation. It's a great way to get people to let their guard down. You know what I mean? And once you let the guard down, Sean, it's like going to a doctor. When we go to doctors, we don't dress up in a winter jacket and big overalls and sit on the table so he can start doing his diagnosis. We have to get down to the basics so the doctor can investigate, do an examination, and then start making determinations on what's wrong. The doctor is going to diagnose, and then he's going to give us some medicine that we have to take. Well, Sean, if you want to live a life of joy, okay, what I found is the less baggage that you have, the greater the opportunity you can to go and stand before the divine physician and get whatever healing he needs to give to you, which is always joy based. I think, Sean, in the world today, we focus too much on happiness, right? Everybody wants to be happy. I'm going to get a big car. I'm going to get a big house. I'm going to get a big boat. I'm going to get a big country club membership. And then guess what? You realize that brings you a momentary lapse of happiness, but it doesn't bring you joy. And let me give you an example for that, Sean. In my 30s, I was actually the most success that I've had in business was in my 30s. From a financial perspective, I was paid an enormous amount of money to run a $125 million a year company. We were very successful by God's graces. And we had a private jet, right, Sean? And I'll never forget the look on the owner of my company's face when we pulled up. We flew, I think, up to, I think it was either northern Georgia or South Carolina, somewhere to a golfing event, right next to the Masters, actually. And when we pulled the private jet, Sean, up to the taxiway, there was like 3 or 4 other jets that were there. And each one of them was progressively bigger than the one that we were in. And I'll never forget looking at the face of the owner of my company. And he was looking, Sean, as if somebody had put a gun to his head. He wasn't happy because he was flying around in an $8 million plane. He was unhappy because somebody next to him had a $15 million plane. I think what men get caught up in, one of the many things, and I'll speak about it this weekend, is workaholism, right? And that's born, Sean, from an envious disposition, not a joyful disposition, because we want to keep working harder and harder and harder and harder to have all these things that we really don't need. And then once we get those things that we don't need, then we compare them to the next door neighbor, right? Oh, I live in $1 million house. Well, guess what? Jeff Bezos lives in a $150 million house. So you're never going to get joy. You're never going to get peace of mind. You're never going to get true fulfillment in chasing the material things of life. So how do I get joy? I get joy through laughter. I get joy through service of the Lord. And when I do that, when I'm blessed to do that at conferences or retreats or galas, that's contagious because, Sean, it's the love of Christ that brings joy into the hearts of people. It's not money. It's not planes. It's not success. It's the love of Christ, which is through service of others.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. And yeah, hopefully your Canadian material will bring some laughter. I don't know. I'd stay away from the 51st state jokes. We're a little sensitive up here.
Yeah, I think what was that movie that had Takeoff Hoser in it? I know there's been a lot of those knockoff Canadian movies. But yeah, I'll try to keep the Canadian jokes to a minute because I'm half French Canadian. So
There
don't
you
hold
go. And
don't hold that against me.
if you're looking for some movies to watch on your way up, I got you a hotel room across from the where we had the '88 Olympics, so you can watch like Cool Runnings or
Okay,
I forget the name of the Eddie the Eagle movie. We had a unique Olympics. How's that? The
I can
Jamaican
imagine.
bobsled team. So yeah.
And obviously, it was the Winter Olympics, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. And so I'm looking forward to seeing you. We're going to ask people to send us what they've got going on in their area so we can help promote that. Please, if you're watching this prior to March 17th, pray for the Litany of St. Joseph in song. We've got this major concert. We've got the Apostolic Nuncio coming to listen. It's a newly commissioned work setting the Litany of St. Joseph to music. We've got 4 soloists, a full orchestra, close to 100 people in the choir behind it. Like, it's going to be magnificent at the premier concert hall here in Calgary that has a Cassavant organ. And yeah, I can't tell you how excited I am about this. And we're going to professionally record it so that we can share it at a later date with the world.
How did you get the papal nuncio, Sean, to come all the way over to visit the concert? How did you
It's
make that happen?
like everybody asks. I'm a big proponent of ask and you shall receive.
Sure.
That reading, I really took that to heart, and so it's we're quite excited about that, and
Good for you.
so
That's
and
awesome.
yeah, so people, if they want to know more about you, where can they find more about Jeff Joaquin?
Yeah, we about a year ago, Sean, year and a half ago, my spiritual director told me that what would be beneficial, because when I go around telling my story, Sean, now, and you'll see this weekend, you know, it's half of my talk is my past, right? And how God has taken a broken pencil and wrote a love story in my life. But really, what the other half of my talks are how God has impacted other people by my talks. And I mean, by his graces, we've had 3 different young men and women come forward and save their children because once they heard the pain and suffering of my story, they changed their mind to keep life. So what he suggested is that I do social media, and I'm very much against social media for a lot of different reasons. I think it's poisoning the youth of our day. I think kids worry more about likes and views and follows than they worry. I only want one follower, Sean, or I'm only following one person, and that's Jesus Christ. And if I can make an impact to other people and by following me. So long story short, just Jeff Joaquin, Joaquin, just Google it, and all the social media stuff will come right up to the top. And what we do is we put out a video every Wednesday, Sean, at 5 p.m. And it's a little snippet from a talk that I've given. It may have yesterday's talk was on pornography, a young lady that was deeply impacted by my talk on pornography. It may be alcohol abuse, drug abuse, workaholism, many different topics, most of which are not comfortable to talk about. But we put a video out every Wednesday. It's a short little 1-minute video that then points people back to our YouTube channel where they can watch the full 45-minute video. So that if they want to hear a little bit more, if they're struggling with something, if they, Sean, I can't tell you how many times, and it's tough to even repeat this, but I've heard a number of times men say, I'll be in church on Sunday, and then 3 hours later, I'll be watching child porn on my computer. How in the world could that possibly be compatible? And what men have to realize is, the devil, he knows us by our name, but he calls us by our sins, right? And it's only God that knows us by our sins, and he calls us by our name. And men, I don't care how far you are gone in pornography or how far a lot of the guys are popping pills, and a lot of them are holding pain back from decades, Sean, decades. You just have to bring that pain into the light. You have to bring it into the light of Christ. You have to seek mercy for it, and then you have to pray your way through the problem. It's not going to get any better if you keep swallowing that pain and pretending like it's going to go away. A lot of those talks are geared specifically towards giving men tools, not just talking about the issue, but to giving them tools to come out of the darkness of whatever sin that they have. And in the same manner that God did for me, Sean, I didn't reinvent the wheel. I'm just proclaiming his mercy in my life and how it's changed it in a permanent way. That's how people can get more of me. And again, I look forward to spending time with you this weekend and doing the same thing for God willing, another audience up there in Canada.
Well, thanks very much for joining us. And yes, we'll have some nice recordings of your talks that you can use for whatever you need. And I want to thank you for being part of Heroic Hotline. And please look forward to us coming back next week. I am gonna see if the Apostolic Nuncio's here, if he would mind sitting down and doing a Heroic Hotline with us.
That would be cool. Yeah.
I think that would be very cool, just understanding some of the workings of the church and how that works. So
sure.